Hello, everyone. We are live from Maui. Welcome, welcome, welcome. If you're just joining us, let me know. Did you sail this week? I did sail this week. I sailed in Cabo Verde, as many of you do know. I had one more day of competition after the last time we saw each other on Sunday. It looked like we were not going to sail on Monday, which was the last day of the World Cup in Cabo Verde, but the conditions came through and we did compete in Little Hoquipa, which is very different conditions to Punta Preta, but quite fun conditions nonetheless, though not what people would consider epic wave sailing. Hey, Dom Dom, Tomas, how's it going? And have you guys been sailing? Hey, Max. I hope everyone is doing well. Tomas, why is my heat the only one not recorded at Little Hoquipa? I don't know. There's probably a lot of conspiracy theories on that one. I didn't agree with the scoring of it, which is fine. I have no negative feelings, and I'm super happy for Takara Ishii to advance over me. I thought one of my waves was very strangely scored, but anyway, it's fine. I think the honest answer, Tomas, why my heat wasn't recorded is that it was one of the earlier heats of that day, and they were taking. It took quite a bit to get set up. So the event was at Little Hoquipa, which is in the middle of nowhere on Cabo Verde, and the event was before happening in Punta Preta, and there was quite a bit of setup there and infrastructure there. Whereas at Little Hoquipa, there's very little internet connection, and they had to bring in a generator to power the cameras and everything. And they were supposed to be filming all the heats, even from the very beginning, but somehow mine slipped through the cracks. One thing that's really interesting, and I don't want to talk too much about the Cabo Verde stuff because I'm gonna do one of these with Ben Profit over the next few days, and we're gonna do a recap of the event. So we did a live conversation during the middle of the event, and we'll do one at the end of the event. And maybe we can even stream it on my channels too. I'm not sure what is best for everyone, but I'll talk with Ben about that. Yeah. So anyway, but the one thing I want to say is really interesting is watching those other heats with the video. So the finals and all the 2-man heats without the scores, because the scores are not on those videos. You can find them all on YouTube, on the PWA YouTube site. I'm not really sure who won when I watched the heats. I'm not without the scores, I could see it going either way, which shows just how close the level is and also how subjective the judging is. So the judging is looking for certain things, but yeah, it was a really interesting experience to watch those heats without the live scores, because there are no live scores because they weren't set up for it in the other spot. And yeah, I really had a hard time seeing who won. All right, so I've got to do some hellos. We've got a lot of people showing up. Hey, Greg, Jorg, Samuel. Samuel, are you still in Tenerife? Dennis, Matt. Yeah, Samuel, looks like you had a lot of good conditions. Stoked to hear about it. Love the post in the group. Dennis had trying to learn how to ride a quad. That sounds good. Sammy, Rich, Hans. Oh, I hope your ankle is good enough. Take it easy. Don't push it too hard, but I hope you can get on the water. Yeah, Dennis, it's hard when it's cold. I know the feeling. Ragnar is doing some ice skating. Yeah, that this time of year up north is definitely more time for ice skating rather than windsurfing. Yeah. Mario. Yeah, so we've got a good crew here. So I might just jump in and go into the Facebook group. You guys are all regulars, except for Henry. Hi, Henry. Um, you got to windsurf 3 times this week. Nice. Welcome to the stream. Henry, where are you windsurfing in Japan? Are you windsurfing in Omiyazaki? For those of you who do not know, Japan has a wonderful and robust windsurfing community and scene. There are a lot of windsurfers in Japan. There are very good windsurfing conditions in Japan. And yeah, I love windsurfing in Japan. All over the place. Omiyazaki is one of the most famous spots. Kind of side shore, side on shore, starboard tack, beach break. Can be very fun. So Saito, which is 30 minutes away, or Daito. So I've windsurfed a lot of these spots around Omiyazaki, but I'm less good with the names of them. But there's a lot of fun windsurfing in Japan. Yeah, Dennis, I'm really curious to hear how your thruster conversion goes. Hello to Sardinia. Hey, Philip. So there hasn't been much sailing in Denmark, Philip says, but lots of sunshine, no wind and frosty weather. Caro, are you still in Cape Town? Have you been getting on the water? I keep seeing some great photos from you. Otherwise, before we jump into the Facebook coaching, I hope everyone is safe and okay. It's kind of wild that there's war at the moment in Europe. So hopefully all of you guys are doing okay. All right, so Samuel is back in Belgium. You were there exactly for the win. That's perfect. Sometimes it just works out that way. All right, I'm going to jump into the Facebook group. So here we are. If you're not a member of the Facebook group, that's fine. But just so you know what it is, so we've got this Facebook group here, and it's a great community of avid windsurfers. And the best part about the community is all the members of the community. So, it's not like you do a post and then I answer. A lot of these posts, I'll talk about them on the live stream, but a lot of the answers is just coming from the community. So, for example, this post from Samuel, it's had 19 comments from people in the community giving answers, giving advice for sailing the wall. And this is so valuable. And I just want to say as well that even if you don't post, if you're someone who's just reading, maybe you're not doing posts, you're not doing comments, that's also fine. You're still a very valuable member of the community. The community, in a community, there are a lot of different roles, and it's an important role just to be someone who uses the information that's posted. Some people like to be more active and more public, and other people don't, and that is fine. All right, so let's get into the coaching. It's been a while since we've done a sort of standard coaching like this because I was competing in the World Cup. So if you guys have any questions, feel free to interrupt me at any time. Hey, Mert. All right, so Cell posted this about no wind water starts. No wind water starts are a very good skill to have, and basically what you're doing is you're pushing the sail over the center line of the board, and the weight of the sail pulls you upright rather than using the wind to pull you upright. I should do a video on this. This is a topic worth doing a video on. I'll remember that. I think there's a second video as well that Cell linked to. So as you can see, pushes the sail up. This one, there is a little bit of wind, but really it's using the weight of the sail over the center line of the board to pull the body up, and then you can kind of get going again. There's a bit of wind here. You can see whitecaps. But this is a way that you can water start in no wind, in actually zero wind. And I've used this technique to help myself get into the beach before. So what I've done, I've had the situation once where the wind died at Hokipa, and so I swam with my gear to close to where surfers would be taking off on the wave, and then water started like this when I saw a set starting to come, and managed to catch that set and ride into the beach. So it's a very good technique to have. All right. Now we've got a this question from Samuel about sailing the wall in El Medano in Tenerife, and this is a question about strategies for staying in position and staying upwind. And there's a lot of quite technical talk. Samuel, I like the way that you did this with the A, B, C, D, and with the red line and the green line. And it made it very easy to discuss this question. And there are a lot of good answers here, like this one from Tamaz shows, this sort of zigzag upwind. And there were a lot of good answers to this. My main answer is, I think that you should go in and re-rig. So if you're underpowered in a situation like this, it seems like going in and re-rigging just takes too much time. But think about how many waves you're missing by not going in to re-rig, right? So all that time that it takes to struggle upwind is the amount of time that it takes to go in and change your sail. And if you think about it, you're struggling upwind after every ride, it takes a lot of time. And so it actually takes less time just to go in and change the sail. One thing that I've done at the wall many times, and this is not something I would recommend to everyone, you have to be comfortable with a certain set of ocean skills to be able to do this, but you can actually just come in on the stairs on the wall. So you sail in to the end of the wall, swim around to the inside, and then as the ocean's sort of surging up and down, you sort of hold onto your back foot strap and let the ocean sort of pull you up onto the stairs, and then you pull up your gear and you can walk up the stairs. And that's the quickest way to get in from the wall. But it does take a fair amount of ocean skill. And so if you don't have that from windsurfing or from fishing or from doing something with boats, I wouldn't recommend doing that, because coming in just with your body is not difficult, but coming in with the gear definitely adds a challenge. It can be quite slippery on these steps as well. They've got a lot of seaweed on them. If you're wearing boots, I guess that's less of an issue. But anyway, the main point is I think re-rigging to the correct powered sail makes a pretty big difference in a situation like this. And the sort of additional point to that is, when you're unsure about which sail to rig, always go a little bit bigger. It's better to be on a little bit too big of a sail rather than too small of a sail in most cases. Sure, there are cases where that's not the case. But then if you're overpowered, it's so much easier to make it back to the beach to change down again. Whereas if you're underpowered, it's a lot harder to get back to the beach to change down. Also, it's a lot easier to sort of just stay on a sail where you're overpowered and make it work, because then you're still getting around, catching waves, staying upwind, rather than being underpowered where you're not catching waves, you're not getting upwind. And then the last thing I would add, I think there's a lot of good comments in here. So I recommend, if this question interests you, reading the comments here. But the last things that I would add is that you can often point way more upwind than you think you can. And so you want to be looking, so for this, specifically for this spot, you want to be looking at the oil rigs, so you're aiming for there's like a sort of an offshore oil platform thing over like here where my mouse is. And so you want to be aiming for that. So aiming way more upwind than you think you want to be going, really looking upwind, looking way more upwind than you think you can, twisting your upper body to really point as high as you can. But I think being on the right gear size helps a lot as well. All right, and there's a lot of good comments in here. In addition, Caro says for the light wind water start that you can also go into the straps and push the rail into water. This pop helps to get out of the water, similar to the gecko. It's super good to be able to do that low wind water start. I've never done this myself, but I have seen you do it, Caro, and so I know that it works. Tomas says, in Medano, it is tricky to decide when to switch sail size. The wind can change by 5 knots every 20 minutes. What I sometimes do at the wall is releasing the outhaul in the water when the wind dies. I think that's a good tip. Hey, Bart. And hello, Facebook user. So this is a clip from Samuel. Let's see if we can make this bigger. Kiter's in the good spot, yeah. The clip's not really loading. I don't know why that's not loading. So let's move on. All right, we've got a question from Dave. Dave's question is, not sure how to cover this, but any tips for how to manage wipeouts on waves, head high or bigger, both to avoid separation from gear and also to get into position for rapid water start whilst getting several waves on the head. I'm starting to wave right at Cabeza this week between Godzilla and the bunker, but have struggled a few times to get the rig into position between sets. Not helped by the short wave period, particularly frustrating when the clue gets forced deep. Thoughts are to not take the first wave of a set, hang onto the boom like my life depends on it, and hold onto the back strap of the board into the next wave before it hits to allow the rig to surface. But I'm aware that that is a good way to spear the mast and break it. What do you guys do to get the rig up and to the surface quickly? Seems the only way to improve is to get rinsed a lot. This is such a good question. I love this question. Thank you, Dave, for asking this question. Because this is something that's not talked about a lot, but is hugely, hugely important. And I think the number one thing, and there's a lot of great comments, 31 comments. Wow, you guys are killing it on the replies. The number one thing is to not let go. And I read through these comments, and I think that people mention that quite a few times. But you really want to make sure that you're holding on when you're getting work. That's often the safest place to be. You don't want to let go. You don't want to separate from your gear. You want to just hold on, hold on, hold on. But how the rig is positioned is really important. And you want to make sure that the gear is positioned with the mast, tip of the mast pointing into the wave. So the line of the mast is perpendicular with the whitewater that's coming at you. And that ideally the luff of the mast is pointing into the luff of the sail. So the mast side of the sail is facing into the wind. And then you want to have, what I like to do is I have a hand on the boom and a hand on the mast, and then I'm pushing it under the water. And I wonder if I do have some footage of this. Richard is saying it's good to film this also. Yeah, I should make a little list of all these things. I've got so many things to film. So we got to film no wind, water start, and the getting worked position. The problem with filming that is you have to just go out and get worked, which can be fun, I guess. I think that's one of the goals. You have to find fun in getting worked. Definitely helps for getting better at getting worked and also not being afraid of it. But you want the mast pointing into the whitewater. And generally, you don't want to hold on to the board. So holding on to the board is dangerous because the whole thing gets twisted. So generally, you want to hold on to the one hand on the boom, one hand on the mast. You could also just have two hands on the mast. I find I have the most control with one hand around on the boom, around the head of the boom, and the other hand on the mast, and my body is all above the boom. So I'm never below the boom. So the board is flopping around, it's never going to hit me. I'm no risk of that. And then it's also very important that the mast is pointing into the wave, and that's a very safe position. You can stay in that position for a lot of waves, and your gear is just like a sled. It's not going to be flipping around. It's not going to be tumbling around. It's a very safe position. Let me see. Um, let me see if there's a video of that. I think I think there's a video. One of the videos I posted. I know there was some footage I sent to Ben Profit for his channel, and maybe I didn't post it on my channel. I thought I was going to, but maybe I didn't. Yeah, it looks like I didn't. Because I think there was a clip from that really windy day. It was like a really windy Hokipa day. And yeah, it looks like it's not here. Anyway, so that position is really important. And two is you always want to water start going back to the beach initially. There are some times like when you're really close to the rocks and you just have to get off the rocks. But most of the time, you really want to make sure that your water starting pointing in, and then the sail position that I'm talking about, where you have the mast pointing into the waves and the mast pointing into the wind, also makes it a lot easier to water start quickly. And if you're about to get hit by a wave and you can't fully get in this position, you just want to get as close to that position as you can. And the waves, when that energy hits you, it will actually start to move the gear more into that position, because that position of the gear is sort of the most streamlined way for everything to travel through the water. And so even if the sail is a little bit sideways, as long as you start getting in that position, then when the wave hits, it will align everything up as you start getting pushed in. But what you don't want is for it to be completely out of position, because then the rig will start to flip, which is what you don't want. And that can start to get dangerous. You risk breaking a mast. Yeah. Philip, yes, I vaguely remember that video. I have to find it again. Yeah, I'll have to see. All right, let's go through the comments and see what advice other people give and whether I agree or not. Yeah, Dan, I disagree with this pretty heavily. I think 99% of the time you want to hold on, and especially the conditions that most people are sailing in. Like maybe if you're sailing at Jaws or somewhere with huge waves, you're not going to hold on. But I've seen people hold on to their sail with over 20-foot waves breaking onto them. And that's often the safest to be. Especially with these big waves, it's not easier to swim after it and wait for a set. So either the wave is smaller, and it would be easy to swim after it and wait for a set. But then in that case, it's not going to cause a lot of damage. I really think holding on is the safest place to be, but you want to be in that correct position. Hey, Nicola. So that's important. You want to be in the correct position, because if your gear is in the wrong position and then you're flipping around, then that will not be good, obviously. So I disagree, but with some caveats. And so the caveat is that it's safer to hold on, but you have to be holding on the right way, in the right position, because if you're holding on the wrong way, it doesn't work. So are there any questions about that position that I've described? Let me know. And I'll try to film something. Let me see if there's the Shauna Papas wipeout video, if we can find this. I think that was on Vimeo. Greg is talking about another video. Let's see if we can find this video from Shauna. And I know I have some videos as well that show this, but I'd have to dig through to try to find them. Getting out through waves, duck dive. So I don't know if this is a surfing. Duck dive your windsurfer. All right, let's see if this is it. Turn off my volume. Vimeo is less good for scrubbing through videos, so I'm not sure. Basically, we just want to see the footage. Was that footage? No. All right, let's see. Come on. This video is on YouTube, Henry? If so, maybe we can play it better there. Vimeo sometimes doesn't play great. And anyway, my computer today is not playing videos great. Huh. I don't know why this is not really playing. But anyway, I'll go through and try to find some video to show this, and then I'll film something for this as well. All right, let me see if I can copy this link. I can't. I don't see a good way to click on that, Henry. All right, let's see. Doing a bit of self-discovery. I guess this isn't self-discovery. This is what am I trying to say? This is like a bit of group discovery, trying to find the video. All right, I got it. How to duck dive your windsurfer, Shauna Kroppus. All right. So here, what we can do is paste it here. All right, so now you guys should see it. All right, here we go. So I like to hold on with one hand onto the mast as well. I think that gives you a bit more control over the rig rather than both hands on the boom like she's doing. But that is one way to do it. The other risk with doing it this way is it puts more trust in your boom. So what I like to do is I have this backhand somewhere around here, and I have this front hand somewhere around here. And that way there's also not very much trust in your boom, because your boom can also break. And so if you're putting a lot of force on the boom, it can break. But if you're holding it here, that's a pretty sturdy position for the boom, and then obviously holding onto the mast. And then using your feet like this to push the sail deeper definitely is a technique that I use as well. You can get the sail quite deep. And for really big waves, what I'm trying to do is get everything under the water so it's just the board on the surface of the water. And you can see that there was a wave passing over Shauna there. And you can see the technique really working. So I want to see if we can get some footage of this from above. Yeah, so this, well, she's not showing it very long. But what we want to see is the footage from above the water. So here, we'll pause it. So you can see that this works, right? That she's under the force of the wave. You get a little bit of a pull, but then you just hold on. So let's pause it. So this is sort of the position you want to be in. So the wind is coming from this direction, right? You can see the guy sailing out. So her sail is in exactly the position that I'm talking about, where the mast is pointing into the whitewater, the luff of the sail is pointing into the wind. And then pushing everything down. And even if you don't push it down, you do want to push it down, but even if you don't, you're fine. You kind of come in like a sled. I'm not sure why she's coming on the rocks there. But the only thing that I would do different in this video is I would have one hand on the mast. So I put one hand on the boom and one hand on the mast. And you could put both hands on the mast. And I think generally the mast is safer than the boom because then you're putting less trust that your boom won't break. All right. Anyway, so I think that makes that position kind of clear. Let's go through some of these comments. Biggest tip for quick water starts is to swim upwind. You won't actually move upwind, but you'll slow your downwind wind movement, and thus rig recovery will be quicker. Knowing how to clue first water start can also help. Yeah, these are good tips. Also, practicing just really quickly flipping your sail can also be really useful. One thing, when the clue is really buried under the water, depending on the position, but you can lift with your hands on the mast and then use your feet to push up on the clue of the sail. That can help. Alex is saying, kick like a mule, get the sail flying no matter what direction it's pointing. The sail clue first on the nose of the board if necessary. This is good advice. The only thing that I would caution is kicking. You do want to be careful how you're kicking, because if you're sailing in places that are shallow, you can kick the reef and hurt your foot. So you want to make sure that you're kicking sideways rather than into the water. Yeah, and then there's quite a lot of comments here. Yeah, we don't have to go through all this. Malcolm says, when falling in, do everything you can to fall in with the rig and board in the best position to do a quick water start. Try to keep the rig out of the water and be very aggressive with the rig. Work on your strength and flexibility to aid better water starts. I think that can help as well. Chris says, if I know I'm going to take a few beatings, I grab the tip of the mast and wait for a chance to fly the sail, starting at the tip, walking down the mast to the boom if onshore, and flipping the sail is not hard when starting at the tip of the mast. I was taught to never hang on to the foot straps and surf because the fin is too dangerous. Yep, I agree with that. I don't think you should hold on to the foot straps. You want to hold on to the sail like we've been showing. You want to stay away from the board. Death grip on the boom. Yep. All right, here David says, no more holding the back strap. Yeah, so I think there's some good tips here. That position that we talked about, water starting pointing in, because then once it's a lot easier to water start in, and then you can get an inside where it's a little bit safer and then get back out again. Yeah, never let go. John says, agree with that fully. Jeff as well says, never let go. Get to the mast tip, figure out which way the current is going because you need to swim hard in the opposite direction to clear the clue. Pop the mast tip up and get the sail flying, hand over hand down to the boom fast. Always water start heading in. Yeah, I agree with most of this. I think sometimes going all the way to the top of the mast, sometimes you don't have time for that if there's a lot of waves. But I agree with most of this. Um, and then Greg says, grab the boom with one hand and with the other hand the mast above the boom. Yep, agree with that as well. Daniel says, stay calm and breathe. Yep, that's a good one too. You always want to stay calm. You don't want to panic. And hold on to the sail, boom or mast above the boom on the cutout. Yep, water start quickly. And the way to water start quickly, one way is to water start coming in. It's a lot harder to water start when going out when you've got all the white waters hitting you. Daniel says, I read advice about ducking the sail before the wave hits. While this is right in general, I think this advice applies in about 5% of the situations only. When the wave is about to break right on the sail, in my opinion, no need to do that for white water at all. If the wave is already broken, even just a second ago, it's still only white water. If you push down the sail for white water, this depends where you're sailing. So if you're sailing in places where white water doesn't have a lot of power, then yeah, maybe you don't need to. But like at Hokipa, for example, white water has a lot of power. So you do want to push the sail under it. Otherwise, you're going to get really tumbled in. In fact, a lot of times the white water has more power than if the wave, like if the wave is breaking right on you, like that is not a good situation to be in, but it's not going to drag you in as much. Whereas the white water can. And so you do definitely, that can be like at Hokipa, that's one of the most difficult situations is when there's a lot of white water. So it depends where you're sailing, whether this is true or not. And so if the white waters don't have a lot of power, then yeah, you don't need to dive the sail. But if they do, it definitely can. Yeah. And like Dave says, just going a little bit underwater takes a lot of pressure off of the rig when the white water comes. Like if you go out and swim, which I really recommend everyone does if you're planning to windsurf in the waves, you swim in the waves, you'll see that to swim under a wave and then not have any force of the wave get on you, you only have to go under the water just a little bit. Obviously, the bigger the waves are, the deeper you have to swim. But for the waves that most people are windsurfing in, you really don't need to go very deep. And suddenly there's no force from the wave at all. All right, we've got a question from Christopher. He wants to go to Handsome or Klitmuller, and he wants to plan the road trip based on which place would be the best introduction. He's more into wave riding than jumping. So I would recommend Handsome. I think I didn't fully understand the question when I answered it. I was saying that Handsome or Klitmuller. Anyway, yeah, I don't think I fully understood the question, but my point is that I think that Fish Factory is probably the easiest place to get into wave sailing in this area. Now, there's other people in this comment thread who have a lot more experience than I have. Some people also recommended Hamburg, which Philip is an expert at. So Christopher, I hope that you find some good advice here and let us know how it goes. Now it's a bit cold. I wonder if you're going to go now or if you're going to wait till the summer. All right. Hey, Mark. Kevin is planning to be in Spain in May and wants to know about where to go. I would say there are a lot of places to go in Spain. You can go Tarifa, Almeria. You can go to Portugal. You can go to, in Portugal, you've got the south of Portugal, like Sagres, and there's a lot of spots, Faro. And then in the middle of Portugal, you've got places like Guincho. And then up north, you've got Galicia. So there's really a lot of windsurfing around Spain. If you want to jump on a flight, you can go to the Canary Islands. All of that can be good in May. And so I would just pay attention to the forecast and go based on the forecast. It's really difficult to make the decision now. So there are going to be good conditions in May. But where they'll be I can't say. Last year, I had a really good trip to Portugal in May. I went with Paul, Windsurfing TV featured it. I've been meaning to do actually a full video of that trip, which maybe I'll do. But anyway, there's a lot of good answers here, and I think you just want to really check the forecast. Whenever you're trying to plan windsurfing trips, the more you can do it on forecast, the better. And if you can't do it on forecast, then you really want to make sure that you're going to places with consistent wind. The most consistent wind places are places like Gran Canaria, Morocco, Maui. They have pretty consistent winds at the right time. All right. Next up, we got a post from Thomas, from Tom. Philip is saying that Fish Factory and Upper Middles are both good places to start sideshore wave sailing. Yep, sounds good. All right, so this is the post from Thomas. He's saying he watched this footage of Camille and thought that the boom was very high. Yeah, some riders are riding a pretty high boom. I think Angulo also rides a pretty high boom. And yeah, I'm not really sure. You can see like Camille, especially in this clip, he's really very straight in his approach to this wave. And I'm not sure if he's definitely not always so straight on his approach. I'm not sure if he's always riding such a high boom. That is an interesting question. I could text him and see what he says, and then post it in the group, in the comments. Yeah, here, I'll write him right now. So, hey, just saw some of your footage from Ponta Preta. Boom looks high. Is that where you always ride it? All right, so I just wrote Camille. I'll let you know what he says. Meanwhile, Richard says, I started lowering my boom. I was on the 5 mark always, now on the 3. I move my boom up and down depending on the conditions. If you go too low, it definitely gets uncomfortable, but it can help a lot for better wave riding performance to lower the boom as well. So I recommend playing with it. Yeah. All right. So Bart says, stoked that this guy got the win. Burns wave riding is a work of art, just like Graham's. Thank you. Can't wait to see the footage. Yeah, he was sailing really well. And he's someone who always impresses me at Hokipa. So it was nice to see him take the win. And yeah, here's some footage from the final. Tristan says, looking at the event in Cape Verde, I have a question about bottom turns. Some seem to sheet in, putting the mast to the back of the board, thus putting the mast to the nose of the board. I don't understand why it seems to load the back of the board, so it should slow the board. And after loading the rail up to the front of the board to accelerate, why not put the mast to the front of the board straight? I think there were some really complicated situations happening. And I know that there's a lot of explanations for why people are doing this. And I think that some of it might be true with how technical this is, but I think a lot of it has to do with timing. And the wave there was really difficult to get the timing right. And sometimes it was slower than you thought, and sometimes it was faster. And I think coming down the wave like this is a way to kind of slow down so that you're not too fast for what comes next. So it's like dropping in and then realizing that the wave is not ready for you. And so it's a way to sort of play with the timing. And I think that that's mostly what's going on more than anything super technical, which is why you see both. You see some riders that are just pushing forward, and then some that are kind of leaning back as they as they drop down the wave. Billy says that every wave is different, slope and speed, which is kind of what I'm saying. Yeah, and then there's the apparent wind. Again, yeah, these are a lot of really technical answers that I'm not sure necessarily describe it. I think it's really a lot about the timing more than anything, and these things are kind of done subconsciously just to adjust to make sure that the timing is right. We've got a question from Philip. Looks like Burn accelerating on the tail mid bottom turn going up to the lip. Can I describe Burns wave riding a little bit more? Let me see if I can find some video of it. He's on very short boards, which affect what he's able to do. Let's see. What I would love to find is just a highlight clip from the single elimination. Does that exist? Do you guys know if that exists? Let's see. And then we can see could also just watch the final. The final. Huh. Okay, let's see what we can find here. Videos. So we can watch the full final. Let's just see if there's a highlight section. Best waves of the single elimination. So let's go through this. So here he's coming in, kind of going up, a bit upwind. And I think it's a lot about timing, because you can see that even with that, he's still a bit too early for this section. And then for this next section where he has more of a better timing, he's not doing that at all, right? He's coming down fully forward on the rail, bottom turning up to hit this section. And then here again, where he has the better timing, he's just leaning straight into it. And then same thing again, he's just leaning straight into it, just leaning forward. He's not going back at all before the turn. So that was a really nice turn. I really like this off the lip. Yeah. This is nice. Yeah, that was beautiful. Anyway, so you can see that when he's got the right timing, that he's not leaning back at all. So you can get really technical with it, but sometimes I think you can explain things that might be kind of true, but in practice don't really matter. I think what's really happening here, Tristan, is that he's just trying to get the timing right on the wave. There also is an element of sort of like a counter motion, sort of like a spring winding up. And you can do that sometimes in your bottom turn where you're sort of back and come a little bit back and then lean forward to really, then you're able to really accentuate that forward movement. This is something that Thomas Svensson talks about a lot. I see he's mentioning it in the comments, and that is definitely valid, and that can work. One thing you want to be careful if you're doing that technique, though, is not applying too much dramatic force at one time to the rail, because that can cause the board to bounce rather than having a smooth transition of power onto the rail of the board. And so here you can see there isn't really, so this is, I would say, the best bottom turn and cut back from this wave. And there really isn't a dramatic sort of back movement to forward movement here. And that's by far the best bottom turn and cut back of that wave. Here we can watch a few more waves from other riders. All right, let's see what's going on here. So here again, you can see that he's a little bit on his heel side rail, and trying to really go with his weight back on the board, because you can see that he's trying to make this section here. This is the only part of the wave that's breaking. And so he's trying to come super, super vertical, because you can see that this part of the wave is not a power source. It's not breaking yet, right? And so in order to get there, he's got to go really far back on the board to get that really tight bottom turn. So one thing I would be careful with when you're analyzing your own riding as well as other people's riding is not to get too overly technical with different positions. I think a lot of times the answers, this is cool, the answers are a lot more simple. It's like in this case, I think it's mainly about just the timing more than anything else. Here's Brasinho, and you can see, he's not leaning back at all. He's leaning forward even before his turn, and he's got a lot of down the line speed, and he's trying to make this section that's way down here. And so he's racing to get there, leaning forward. One thing that Brasinho does that's kind of interesting is he's not going very much rail to rail. So you can see he's carving on his rail here. And then at this point, he gets off the rail. And so he starts to unweight already here. And so he's unweighting and then starts traveling up to hit that lip. And that's a super nice turn. It's a valid way of riding. But it's quite different than some of the more rail to rail approaches. So I don't know if you guys can see that what I'm talking about, where he's really driving on his rail, forward, driving. And then here he starts just unweight, lifts up into the lip. So anyway, Tristan, I think this is a really good question, and I hope that what I'm saying is clear. And again, just as a broader theme, I think it's important not to. Well, that was a late hit. It's not good to get too technical when you're analyzing your own riding or other people's riding, because a lot of times the answers are a lot more simple as to why things are happening. And let me throw this on top, which I think is really important. It also should be somewhat of a liberating realization, because it means that you don't need to be thinking in such minute detail. You don't need to be thinking about all these like super technical aspects. You just need to be thinking about, okay, that's the part of the wave where the power source is. That's the part of the wave that I need to get to. And so I'm too fast for that, so I need to go upwind, or I need to slow down. And thinking in those broader terms will yield much more effective results for you. So I think that it's actually a pretty cool thing for the aspiring wave rider to realize that it's not about these minutiae of technique. It's just so much about timing and flow, and just getting to the right part of the wave at the right time. And so if you're thinking about those things, because that's what these guys are thinking about, it will also work for you. And how you do that, how your body makes that happen, um, is not necessarily conscious, right? And so like when we saw Bant doing that, I don't know how conscious that was. I think he was just really consciously thinking, okay, I've dropped in too early. The wave is not set up yet. I've got to fade a bit on my bottom turn before I come back up. And then the technique follows. And I think that that's such a good concept for a lot of what we're doing with the windsurf coaching, where we want to think about these bigger concepts and then let the body find the technique for it. So focusing on timing is a lot more important than focusing on technique, and your body will find the technique. So anyway, I think that that's a really interesting concept, and I hope it it comes through. Rich, or someone asked, who Matt asked, is Brown on a production board? Nope. He came with, I don't know, a lot of customs. He had like 8 boards or something, and they were all customs. All right. So what else from the comments? Thomas says, just to point out, the back and out movement positions rig into bottom turn before the turn. Everyone should train this more, especially all the pros. The ride looks so better. Rich was impressed by Antoine Martin. Hey Jeff, how's it going? We just went through your advice about getting worked, and definitely agree about holding on despite everything. Facebook user. So again, Facebook user, if you want me to see who you are, or all of us to see who you are, you have to give StreamYard permission. So who is the wave rider that I consider an innovator who made a revolution in wave riding? The most simple answers to that are Mark Angulo and Jason Polikow. They, I think, made the biggest impacts on wave riding. I'd probably put Cowley in there as well, but I think Mark Angulo is probably number one because he invented just so much that we do. And Polikow as well, with his radical approach to riding waves. And then, Cowley also sort of revolutionized wave riding. We really changed how we design boards based on him. So those, I would say, are the 3 biggest innovators in wave riding. So that's Mark Angulo, Polikow, and Cowley. Hey, Tristan, we just finished talking about your question. So you want to go back and watch that. We just talked about your question about the bottom turns. Just to cut it short, Tristan, I think what's going on is not anything overly technical, and I think it's really important not to get too technical. But what's going on is just a timing thing. And so it's a way to slow down. It's a way to make the section. You can see on other sections of the wave, Bant is doing a completely different kind of bottom turn where he's just leaning forward, and that's where the wave is faster and more critical. And so it's just a lot to do with timing. And my broader theme coming out of this is that you want to think about your own wave sailing in those terms as well. You don't want to get too technical about it. You want to think more in broader pictures, and then the technique will come, because often if you just focus on the technique won't come. All right, next up, question from Samuel. Hi group, I've asked this in the live stream, but I reckon it would be useful to have the information in the group. So I've been sailing at the harbor wall. First time ever sailing a reef break. Any suggestions how to approach the spot? Yeah, so we talked about this already on the stream. Sounds like we've got some good comments here. This is a good thread if you're interested in sailing at the wall. Some more. So we've got this competition that's ongoing. And at some point, I don't have a deadline for this, but at some point, this will end and there will be some winners who will win some duffel bags. But basically, the competition is about how to explain making that high five in the power source rather than on top of it, because a lot of people understand the concept of connecting with the power source and getting the high five, but then they're doing it on top of the power source rather than in it. And so I'm looking for a way to explain how to get in it rather than on top of it. This is a good example from Josh. Thank you, Dom Dom, for posting this. You can see where he's coming up into the power source. You can really see this connection, this high five that's happening with the power of the lip is throwing and hitting the bottom of his board. Jan links to this interview. And I think that that's it. We've got a few other posts. So maybe I just kind of fly through some of these posts that we didn't get a chance to talk about while I was in Cabo Verde. So Rich does this post for, I think it's about forward loops. Is that right? Let's see. Well, if it doesn't want to play, oh, here we go. These are nice forwards. These are good. Yeah, moving that hand back will help. And then also maybe throwing the gear more away from you. Like you don't want to be so close to the gear as this. So this could be a little bit cheese rolly that we're not really able to see with the angle from the GoPro. But yeah, hand farther back, but still it's a nice forward. So moving that backhand farther back will help. And then also the other thing is not throwing your body so much into the turn. Thinking of it more as a spin rather than a flip will help. All right, so, oh, here we got another forward loop from Rich. Cool. Really nice to see you getting this far. I mean, this is it. You know, once you get to this point in the forward, it's all refinement. So you're doing it, you know. One of the things that will help you, Rich, is just really focusing on getting that head looking back and really thinking of the move like a twist rather than a somersault. So it looks like you are thinking of it in those terms, but you can do it even more. So getting that head even more around. But these look good. These look good. This is now just a matter of refinement. So that's sweet. I am stoked to see this. This is the hardest part with the forwards is just getting to this point. I've been talking a lot with Ben Profit about what the best technique is, the best strategy is for teaching forward loops. And it might help, Rich, if you've already got to this point to do some goose screws. I think the goose screw is a great technique for doing the forwards, but also you've got to combine it with other techniques as well. But since you've already this far, it might be really interesting to do some of the goose screws, like fully planing going out, where you're just going downwind with the sail open and then flipping around under the sail, closing the gap. But this looks good. This looks good. Oh yeah, okay. This was the talk I did with Ben. So here, Tavi posts an aerial. Yeah, Rich, if you want to do a post about your process for learning the forward, I'd love to hear it because so many people want to do the forwards. And I have the methodology that I've kind of developed, but I'm always trying to refine it. All right, so Tavi did this post about aerials, and this is definitely a radical section. Very radical section, nice bottom turn. So Tavi, what I would say is if you want to work on your aerials, and I know that you're a very accomplished sailor. I've sailed with you a lot in South Africa. I know that you're good. And so it can be hard to kind of go back a few steps. But if you really do want to learn your aerials, I think it would be a good challenge, an interesting challenge to do. And what you want to do is less of a good bottom at the beginning, and instead work on going more parallel with the wave, just kind of building speed and sailing more straight into the lip. And so there, those are aerials that count less in competition. The reason that they count less is because they're easier to do, and therefore it's a good place to start when you want to learn how to do aerials. And so this kind of aerial with the radical bottom turn coming up into the pitching lip from underneath it is very radical, and it looks super cool, but it's very difficult to learn how to do aerials this way. And so I recommend starting out more parallel with the wave, sailing more into the lip, and working on aerials that way. If you're in South Africa, Sunset Beach is a great place to learn aerials. You have to watch out for the double up. That can be quite dangerous. And where else is good? Milk Boss can be good. Scarborough can be good, at least for going off the back, for kind of figuring it out. All right, Vic says, thanks for the stream. This is an old question. All right, what is this? Eric wants an analysis of the Coster heat. Yeah, we could maybe do that. I think I talked about this with Ben. A lot of it is just gear that's not necessarily right. Antoine is trying to find his next board. So hopefully there are some good comments here, 25 comments. The other thing I would add for an 82 liter board is I love the 82 to curve Taboo production board. It's a board I use sometimes. All right. I think that this is everything. I think we've kind of commented on it. Oh, Nick is trying some back loops. I didn't see this post yet. Okay, so it's hard for me to see from this angle. I can't tell if this is... So Nick, I think the main thing is that you want to go more upwind, like way more upwind than you think. Take off way more upwind than you think. I think that's the main thing to start. All right. Yeah, no problem, Jared. I really enjoy doing this. Cool. Rich, I'd love to hear about what your plan was and how it worked. Sounds good. All right. I think that's it. I don't know if there was something else while I was in Cabo Verde. If there was something else that you posted while I was in Cabo Verde and we didn't talk about it on the stream, just comment on your post, and then that will push it up to the top of the page, and then I'll see it again. So I'm not sure if we talked about some of these, like the best spot for doing back loops or any of these other things. Yeah, so if there was something we didn't talk about, if you did a post and we didn't talk about it, just comment on it, and that will push it to the top of the page, and then I'll see it and we can talk about it next week. All right, everyone, I'm going to sign off. I'm on Maui. I don't know if there's sailing today. I think there is not on Maui. I think we've got kind of a northerly wind day, but there might be sailing. And so I'll get ready in case there is. And I hope it's windy wherever you are, or if it's not windy, that you are safe and enjoying whatever you're doing. I'll see you guys all in the Facebook group and on the stream next week, Sunday. All right, I'm going to sign off. Take care. Bye.